I strike up a candid conversation tonight with Enzo Teodoro,
Hello.
one of my old friends,
Yeah,
but actually just getting to know each other more
I
recently.
know. Now my neighbor, so I'm looking forward to having him here.
Yeah. Any additional?
None. Just hi to everybody, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day or night.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
hope you take something from this. Take care.
Yeah. Don't take too much though. But yeah.
Good evening, Enzo.
Hey, buddy. Long
Yeah.
time.
Long time.
Yeah.
So, how are you?
Good. Been busy. I think the last official time I saw you was with BMW
Yeah. I think
ACC.
that
ACC.
was over 12 years ago. I remember you were the product specialist.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You were with your dad, so I remember seeing you during the
yeah, a
dealer
lot of
cons.
events
Yeah, a
for
lot of event. Yeah, of
BMW.
course, all the product launches. Yeah, that sort of thing. But yeah, so much has happened since, and yeah. So what's keeping you busy nowadays?
Well, now busy with, of course, the automotive business
Hmm.
and some expansions here and there,
Yeah,
and new brands also. So, exploring different locations around the country.
nice,
So, in terms of the industry, it's looking good. It's booming.
good. So you're still. I mean, it's still Gateway. Is it Gateway? That's how. Was that
Yes, yes.
your
It's under that umbrella.
that umbrella?
So it's quite exciting, especially now with EVs, with BEVs, all these
Yeah.
new types of vehicles. So
So
it's
what's our BEVs?
uh, different
Electric,
types, diba?
different
Mga
types of electric
EVs,
vehicles.
mga hybrids.
How's that going for you guys? Is that something that is it a volume seller or is it a
Uh,
niche thing pa rin?
well, honestly, for now, EVs aren't really taking off yet. But in terms of branding, in terms of hype, of
Mm-mm.
course, you read about it a lot. But I think for this country, it's still a bit far. The volume isn't quite there yet. Well, of course, people worry about infrastructure,
Yeah.
about range anxiety, battery disposal eventually. So some
Yeah.
are skeptical, some are wary. Where you have also another group that's really pushing for it.
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual volume, it's still quite behind. So it's still the legacy brands that are still taking off. But of course, it's inevitable that EVs will also start to dominate. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
But I think over the next 3 to 5 years, maybe not so much yet.
Mm. Because what I heard wasn't the EU, or I'm not sure if the EU mandated all their automotive manufacturers to at least have an electric line. But I think recently, if I'm not mistaken, VW and Mercedes pulled out. So I think they are not going to go with a full electric future.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. But what you mentioned, like to me, like range anxiety, I think that's more for like the United States because you travel super long
Yeah.
distances. Whereas here, since electric cars function inversely to a combustion engine, when you're stuck in traffic, actually, it's more efficient because you're not using anything. So it's like leaving your phone and not surfing the net or not going on Instagram. But yeah, for me, I get it. I get the whole EV thing. I've test driven quite a few also, but I don't know. I still look for a proper engine. It's just I feel like half the character of the car is really in the engine.
Yeah, I think you sound like Jeremy Clarkson. I
No,
think
no.
he's one of those guys who really wants the traditional
Yeah,
petrol, the sound of a V8.
yeah. I do like the
But I
sound.
know there are a lot of good EVs out there,
Oh
especially
yeah.
now with the rise of BYD, MG.
Mm-hmm.
I think these are
Mm-hmm.
Tesla, but wala
Yeah,
pa masyadong Tesla here.
yeah. I think
But
it's
with
opening though.
BYD, they're really pushing, and I think they have very interesting products and the pricing is quite competitive.
I will say this. So Mark Yang of BYD for a very long time, when I was still running Opus Machina, wanted to feature his cars on the page, which I super, I was very flattered with. But I was very, how do I say it? I was, I guess, ignorant also, but at the same time, very stubborn in my approach, and I didn't want to have anything to do with EVs.
That time,
At
that
the
was
time,
years ago when
yes, but
he
wow,
ran the distributorship.
yes, and now I think he's just part of the
I
right.
think he
I-
carries a few dealerships. Well, I know him personally,
He
but
lent
I
me
haven't
he lent me
spoken to him
he lent me
recently.
the Han, the one that looks like a Model S of Tesla.
Or yeah, Han. Then
The
there was the
Han,
Chin.
and then there's a Tang, right?
I think that was 7 years ago, but now it's
The new
completely
one,
different.
yeah, the new one, the new one. He lent me the new one like recently.
Okay.
It's fantastic. I was blown away with the performance. I was blown away with the price, the quality of the materials, the build quality of the car. Of course, only time will tell really how good the build quality is and how good your after sales will be. And that's the mystery at this point for EVs. It's what happens when it ages and what do we do with the batteries when they hit 80% maximum capacity. Do you replace the battery? Is the car disposable? So there's so many of those things. But I mean, if you're gonna buy a car and keep it for 3 years, maybe 3 years, and if you're the type to rotate your cars, I don't think it's gonna be much of a problem. It's the charging that unless you have your own charger talaga, like, because some people live in a condo, right? Those who live in units don't have an exclusive charger for their cars. So it's still a bit of an inconvenience on the infrastructure part. But one thing that I remember when the BMW launched the i3, i8 in Singapore.
That was 2015, somewhere there.
Earlier, because I was still with the ACC. I was still with BMW.
2013, perhaps.
Probably. And I was in Singapore, and they were talking about how to get people to buy an EV. And he said something very smart. I forget his name. So he said, what we do is, since Singapore is such a small country, chances are you will be able to use your EV to its full capacity just by going around Singapore. But there are a lot of people who travel and cross to Malaysia. So what do? He said, we offer them packages upon purchase that you get, let's say, a week's worth of a BMW X5 every year as part of your ownership package, which now covers your holiday trip. Diba? So I don't know. Maybe that might work here. It would also help if there was more government incentives, I think.
But I think it's helping with the hindi kasama sa coding.
Absolutely.
And of course now
yes.
they've removed the tax, so prices are much cheaper. And you can see, especially BYD, MG, there's a lot of EVs going around.
Yeah.
A lot of good perks naman.
Yeah. I agree.
Especially pricing, I think it's in the 1.5 range na. So it's very attainable because before it's siguro mga 2.8 above. Right. Then I think the range is only 300 kilometers, whereas now I think it goes beyond.
Is that price drop a tax thing, or is the products become, since they're more, I guess, available now, naturally they...
I think a bit of both. The tax factor plus the product itself. Especially with China, because I think it's China that's really pushing for EVs.
Yeah.
The way I see it now, it's yung other countries, other manufacturers, more focus sa hybrids and the other types of parang hindi full EV.
Yeah.
It's really the Chinese brands that are really pushing more of full EVs.
In your group of cars, do you carry a full EV brand?
Yes, but some are mixed. Like with MG, my hybrid, my full EV. So broad yung lineup.
Right.
And of course, we have Jetour, which carries the ice cream, a very affordable
is Jetour
EV.
fully electric?
No, it's not.
Because there's one that looks like a Defender that's really nice.
That's the T2.
That's not
No,
an
it's not.
electric.
It's not
Yeah,
electric.
that's really nice. That's super nice.
Yeah, that's like a Defender at much less.
Yeah, but it looks
Well, it's a 2.5 million Defender type
Oh,
vehicle.
there you go.
So, kaya. But Jetour, it's still a new brand. That's why we're doing a lot of efforts with marketing. If you can see, di ba? Some mga
Yeah.
Kramer,
yeah.
they're all over the billboards.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Well,
and we have Hyundai and Kia. Like the EV6 for Kia
That's
and
I-
Ioniq
that
5,
I drove.
Ioniq 6 for
That I
Hyundai.
haven't tried yet. The Hyundai one's not yet, but the EV6 of Kia, yes.
Yeah. But for sure, it will benefit a lot of the consumers considering dami ng options
Right.
and it's attainable, plus the perks, plus financing support from most banks kasi predominantly it's financing. That's really pushing the volume.
Right.
So malaking tulong yung financing deals.
Based on like your knowledge of the car industry, what Chinese car brand is, I guess, the one with the most, let's just say, I wouldn't say tenure or exposure, but the one that maybe has been there longer than most? That when you, because like for me, when you talk about a China car now, I just see them all as equal in terms of, because I'm not very familiar with it, right?
Yeah.
But because the first Chinese car that I heard about way back was Cherry, obviously, because it was, I think, the first that broke through.
Yeah.
Here there was Haima and all of those other.
Made an attempt, then it failed.
There you go.
And now they're making it a lot better. They're making more efforts. With China, I think now yung leading players, it's mostly MG and Geely. Well, now with EV, BYD. Yun lang for now. Because the rest, I think Chang'an, JAC, they offer a lot of value, but in terms of the branding, they need to catch
GAC
up
is
more.
nice though. Is that the one with the GS8? Is that GAC?
Yes,
ba?
yes.
The one that looks like an Escalade-ish looking.
Yes. And if you notice, mga China brands mas, they can offer more in terms of specs, mas
Absolutely.
high-tech.
Absolutely.
So that's really
Yes.
what they offer, more value.
Actually,
They
that's
just lose in terms of branding perception.
correct.
So behind pa sila. That's why
Correct.
they need to make up for it
Correct.
in this regard.
But the rate at which they are making habol, the Japanese car brands or even the Korean ones, is much faster than the time it took, let's say, Hyundai and Kia to be a brand that people would take
Yeah.
seriously. Because one, a lot of Chinese car companies now own some luxury, like Geely as an example, owns
Yeah.
Volvo. So that sort of increases your portfolio and the affinity of people to trust you with their purchase. And it's hard to beat, I hate to say it's hard to beat Chinese money because they have so much to throw around that the development is crazy fast. I remember the very first time I drove a Chinese car. It was called a Haima. Anyway, I test drove it in 2012. It felt like a car from 1993.
Behind pa.
So behind. It had a manual gearbox. It had the shittiest clutch. It had the shift action was terrible. But moving on to today,
But that's a big leap considering that was 15 years ago lang.
it's a
So
huge leap.
So big difference.
Yeah.
For in a short period of time.
Correct.
So it means they're really aggressive now.
Right.
And I think they're pirating all the good designers
Exactly.
from Europe,
Exactly.
'di ba? So mga designers ng BM, sa
Exactly.
Audi, sa Benz, baka nandun na lahat sa
And a lot of
headquarters nila.
correct. And a lot of the European luxury brands like BMW, as an example, they tend to market their flagship vehicles towards the Chinese market because they're the ones who really buy them. I mean, like buy them. So you can have a lot of people like me who will say, the girl is so ugly. What is that? Looks like a cartoon. But I'm not the buyer. I would like to buy, but the truth is I can't buy it. Right? I don't have the financial capacity to just do it. And there are many people like me. But in China, maybe they don't really say so much, but they will walk in the dealership and walk out with 2 or 3 of them. So I understand why the market is sort of dictated by China in a lot of ways. And that's why the 7 Series, the new one, as good as it is, does not feel like a BMW.
Mm.
It doesn't. It feels like a Rolls Royce Ghost-ish type of
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
but it's lost that it is not at all
Actually, that's
representative.
what I feel about the newer BMs.
Exactly.
Kasi it feels like it's lost its heritage.
There you go.
It's lost
Thank you for saying it.
it's lost its identity.
There you go. Thank you for saying
Just like I look at the new 5 Series now. Iba.
it's
Parang,
terrible.
especially the
Yeah.
well, that's a subjective statement.
Sorry,
so
subjective
that's fine.
statement. Yes, it is. But
Okay naman. Pero I personally dislike the newer BMWs.
I do
The
too.
previous one, I liked the G20, the G30. But I think that was the
Up
last.
until the G30 for me.
Yeah,
Yes.
for me.
I would still. I
think
aspire to buy
aligned
one.
tayo dyan.
Yeah, I aspire to buy one someday. I mean, I still drive a BMW today, so my amour for the brand is there, but the new products are just no
Actually,
longer
Yeah,
what
nawala
I know
yung
BMW.
that,
It's not.
that BM feel.
Yeah,
no?
it's gone.
Yung,
In the steering, it's gone.
di ba, road feel,
The road feel,
medyo matigas.
it's
Even
gone.
the stiff suspension was fine because that's what made it a BM.
Exactly. Right.
When I look at BMs now, iba, parang plancha na. I don't know. It's
And
very
there's
different.
something lazy about the screen that they just put on top of. I'm sorry. I mean, it's every to each his own, but I find it lazy that there is no sculpture whatsoever. It's a regular dash, and they just plop a screen there, and it's not even center. It's kind of off center this way. Then again, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not really. I'm a consumer. You know, I have had BMWs. I still drive one, but it is the new ones are not cars that I maybe as a little boy would have
Yes,
aspired
yes.
for. You know, and that is
Yeah, I remember yung mga E46.
yes, that's where it's
yung
lost.
mga E30.
Yes,
That E39.
there you
Tama,
go.
tama.
Yeah, same. So we're the same there. You know, but the world moves on.
Yeah, but it's like it's moving so fast that it's losing the substance or it's losing the core. No?
Absolutely.
Parang they're just going with the trend and they're just adding all this stuff. It's losing that soul. It's losing
You know why?
that-
Because at the end of the day, a sale is a sale. And for as long as people will buy their cars, if people will buy BMW jackets and ball pens and everything,
Yeah.
they will always be there. So they will always
Yeah.
answer and cater to what people will spend on.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my question for you as a person with multiple dealerships. How do you balance your brand identity with high volume of sales? Are those two things, you know how marketing and sales sometimes they're in one company, but usually sales and marketing sort of
Well, when we choose a brand, we usually make sure it's aligned with what we stand for, what we
Right.
look for. And us being a dynamic company, of course, volume and yung mga established brands. Kaya we're also in that consolidation phase of really ensuring we hit the numbers and we have the right partners. So, yeah.
Do you still carry like brands like BMW or no more?
Actually, we just gave that up. Actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are you looking to go to have like more halo, like low volume luxury brands? Or
We'll
are you
see.
happy
We'll see.
this-
Actually, we're quite satisfied now with the brands we have. We have a lot on our plate now, so
I can imagine.
we're quite busy. So if it comes, it comes.
Right.
But we're not really pursuing it actively. If the opportunity is there,
That's interesting.
yeah. So yun.
Cool. So, industry-wise, do you plan to so you plan first to focus on what you have now, and sort of, I guess, perfect it in a well-oiled machine type of.
Well, of course, we just want to ensure that, of course, customer satisfaction is met. We hit the numbers. It's efficient. The branches are doing well. The people are happy. The customers are happy. We adhere to brand standards. We also wanna uplift further our own branding, which is Gateway. So
Yeah.
as long as the numbers go up and internally, externally, there's growth, then it's pretty straightforward for now.
Yeah, because I remember my cousins, because they live in BGC, several of them. And I've always known you kasi from my BMW days as
Yeah, because when we
BMW.
started, actually, BM was one of the earlier brands we carried, and very humble roots pa nga kasi we were in Cebu. and
Right.
Even that time, I thought, wow, laki na ng mundo. But that time, ano pa lang, that was it. But we thought it was really something. So
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember one time my cousin was just like, hey, when you go to BGC, I forget what car it was. I'm not sure if it was a Nissan Z or it was the 370Z Payata, I think, prior to the 400 that was on display. And he was saying there's this Nissan Gateway thing, and I said, what's Gateway? And he said, oh, you'll see it as you pass. And that's when I put two and two together that Gateway's you guys.
yeah,
And from there I remember it was just a boom of Kia. If I remember correctly, there was a Jimny that I even contacted before, right? My friend.
yeah, we
Before.
also
So,
carry that
Yeah,
Suzuki.
you know what I mean? So parang it was just all of a sudden it was, for me, out of nowhere came Gateway, and it was just all of a sudden it was everywhere. So yeah, that's must be a headache to manage everything. Were you managing it from Cebu, or were you?
Well, it's a family corporation, so of course we have our key VPs, key heads.
Yeah.
So we have people in place.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But going back to BMs, you worked for BM for how long?
Yeah, so I was with
ACC.
BM.
That was only ACC. right?
Yes, I was with BMW
And
for.
you were in marketing primarily, product
Yeah, because they moved.
product special.
So the product specialist or product planning position was originally in sales. So I was working under the late Hill Balderas first. And then I was moved to marketing because Glenn Dasig took over, and he absorbed product planning because it was something that was second nature to him. So I worked with him and Carl Magsusi. Those were my bosses in BMW. I stayed there for I think 2 years. So I was doing what I wanted to do, or what my dream was, which was to play with a configurator and see it come to life, basically. I was young, it's 20, 23 years old.
We're about the same age because when
Yes.
we met, I think I was also 22,
There you go.
23.
So I'm 35 now.
Oh yeah, so I'm 34 now.
Oh, there
So,
you go. So
okay.
roughly the same age.
Yeah.
We did. I learned the hard way that, of course, for me, it was all passion, passion, passion. And BMW even had banners about passion and all of these things. So I thought it was going to be just me making cars, speccing them in colors and wheels and trim and different kinds of leather that I felt people would want. And my bosses, Glenn and Carl, were very quick to say that there's a science behind what you're supposed to be doing, which is finding a spot or a space for the vehicles that we're going to sell. So I never understood kasi why, some BMWs we had did not have paddle shifters. As a car person, I was like, but a Toyota Altis has it. A BMW most certainly should. And Glenn would talk about, no, because it's an entry-level BM, you want people to aspire for maybe from a 318 to a 320. Then you put the paddle shifters, but keep the wheels at 18 inches so that somebody who wants 19s might want to go for a 328 or a 335 at the time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of the business side that I could not grasp at the time. All I wanted to do was make beautiful cars, aspirational vehicles, say. And those, I think, were called Heya models, if I'm not mistaken. Those were like the press cars that would come and then they sell. There are 2 units of that look, super dressed.
Halo.
Halo model, yes.
Halo models.
The Halo model. So that's what I was taught. So he said, Glenn said, for the 318s, keep them at black, white, silver. Keep the Malalanda colors for the more exciting stuff like the Z4
Yeah,
or, which
of
made
course,
sense to me as I got,
the business side of
yes,
things.
because
So you can't be too passionate or
exactly. So
idealistic.
unlike you,
You
I
have to.
had
It has to
no,
make sense also
yes,
in
I had no
terms of.
exposure on the business part. I was just a passionate car guy, boy, so I just wanted to make,
Yeah, but I think you're in the right position at that time because
yeah,
it was focused on the product.
yes,
Because
yes,
I remember you vividly. Yeah, you were very passionate about presenting the cars. I think
yes, that
you
was my job.
mastered the specs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You had this thorough presentation and it
Yes.
was very like
Yeah,
properly executed.
yeah, which is actually terrible because I had to learn everything there. I when I stepped into the job, I didn't even know how to use Excel. One time Glenn saw me doing an Excel sheet for him, and I had using my phone calculator. Yeah, I didn't know how to put the plus stuff, and there was this thing called VLOOKUP, and I was like, didn't understand the language. So the work part was where I struggled. The passion part was there. So when they were asking me questions about why I felt this model had to be such or why this was the placement for that, I could answer it, and
Mm.
90% of the time my answer was right. But how I arrived there was the problem because they needed to see a business model, which I didn't. It's like a person cooking in the kitchen and doing it all by feel with
Mm.
no cookbook,
So you
no
had to
guide.
develop those
He
skills.
had to teach those skills, but I didn't stay long enough to learn.
Uh,
I was also stubborn in that sense, and I was just like, then if this is what it's gonna be like, and it had to be
Yeah, but I think
systematic.
that also depends, right? Because you can focus on your strengths and
Of course, of course.
like example, like someone's like Michael Jordan excels in basketball, so
Mhm.
he just needs to nurture his skills.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you throw him in, let's say, dancing or some other field, of course he'd have a tough time. So,
That's true. Basically, but people like Michael Jordan, they have a God-given talent, but
Yeah,
at the same time, a superhuman drive to
yeah,
excel, and
and
so they put in the work. I just wasn't mature enough to
yeah,
learn.
and I think my point is you just focus on your strengths right away. I
Absolutely.
mean, you can of course learn some skills, but I think if it's not for you, it's not for you.
Yeah.
Then focus on your skills, what you're good at, then divert your drive in that aspect.
So, like for you, would you do something you're good at but not passionate about, or would you, or are you the type to only get into things that you're passionate about, so you won't have to feel like you're working?
I think I would assess myself first, like if this is really for me, because I internally I think everyone has that gut feel, that
Mhm.
intuition, if this is really your calling or if you can do this. So I would really assess. Like me personally, I'm not necessarily a finance guy, so
Mhm.
so I would delegate certain tasks to people who are smarter in that field, and perhaps we could align and really figure out what our roles really are and how we can really contribute. But of course, I can learn a thing or two
Of
with
course.
finance
Of course.
along the way.
Of
So
course.
I think we can be more efficient in that sense, as opposed to really trying to,
Force your
fixate
way, yeah.
on
Yeah.
this
Force
field
your way
that's
into
really
something,
not
yeah.
for you. Then
True.
you just fumble.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind me asking, when you were young, minus your exposure to your family business, what was your dream? Like, did you have one day I want to be this before you got exposed to your family business? Or was this a natural progression for you that
I think it was a mix because there was a time when I was younger. I
Mhm.
was somewhat aloof. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think I'm somewhat of a philosophical person, so more into writing, more into an introspective type of job where it's quiet, and it's very opposite to our business, which is you're out there, it's quite noisy. So I had to really navigate.
Well, actually, with me, since you said that, when I put up Opus Machina, which is my automotive website of sorts, I put it up not to do car reviews. So I was very straight when I tell people I'm not doing a full-on car review. You will not see the engine bay open because I don't know the components of an engine, that sort of thing. I love cars for what they are, but I'm here to tell stories. I used it as an outlet because similarly also I have tendencies to be introspective, but maybe I hide them more so as not to make myself feel like I overthink or that I tend to obsess over certain things. But writing became sort of an outlet for me.
So you write as well.
Yes.
Of course. 'Cause
Yes.
you're in.
Yes, I used to work for C
motoring.
Magazine. That was my very first job.
Yeah.
So yeah, writing somewhat gave me an outlet to release energy I did not know how to dispel because I'm not athletic. I don't have, I was never an outgoing person. So I was never the kid playing outside the
I
street.
think I relate to you in that regard.
I was always with my parents, or it's kind of polar opposite. So I also started going out like clubbing very early, which is weird because I always wanted to rush this whole growing up process. When I finally got there, I also stopped much earlier than everyone else who were doing it at the right age. And that's why my introspective nature came quite late, I guess. And that was where I was able to understand more what I was going through. Like I had bouts of, I wouldn't say anxiety. I didn't really know if I was bipolar, but there were times when I'd be super happy with everybody, and then within like 2 seconds, it's just completely shut down, like quiet. Not necessarily sad, not necessarily depressed, but just withdrawn. And my friends even had a term for it. My barkada, they said, "Oh, Enzo's in his pensive mood."
You mean you would shut out and hibernate?
No, I'd still be around them. It's happening in real time. So let's say we're having a dinner with friends. I don't know what triggers it, but all of a sudden, it's like from being the person leading the conversation, I just become dead silent.
So you shift from
It's a major
being
shift.
from talkative, then you just shut out.
Yes, but not in an impolite way that I make people uncomfortable, but I just become.
Because you're alone in your thoughts in that moment.
Yes, I get carried away with it, and I don't intend to make people feel a certain way. It's really about myself. It was just
It's a personality trait.
Yes, I become silent, and so I guess my brain was also overstimulated with all the activities I'd have with all my friends, and that maybe I just needed some alone time so that it happens at the right, those moments of introspecting or those moments of analyzing certain things. So happens at the right time.
You were an outgoing introvert.
Exactly. You're the only person who's ever said that, and I'd always say it to others, "Oh, I'm an outgoing introvert," meaning I could be like the life of the party type of person, but if somebody comes along, just one person sits on a table, even if I know 7 out of 8, I am no longer the same person after that person sits. It takes a while for me to warm up to people.
Yeah, that resonates with me.
Yeah.
I think I'm similar that way because you mentioned there was a phase you partied, and there's a phase I also went out. In those early BM days, I also had that feeling that time. Oh, because I just graduated, and I heard, oh, we got the BMW dealership in Cebu. So it's like I was feeling this high, like, cool. But yeah, that was really shallow if I look back now. But I guess that was part of the chapter then.
Yes. You can't regret how you were.
It's part of the journey.
Exactly.
And I learned a lot from those times because I was young also.
Yeah.
didn't know shit about running a dealership or
Right.
so I had a lot of people exploit on my weaknesses. I had a lot of, and it's a vicious world. A lot of people can just
Of course, betray.
betray
Oh,
you,
absolutely. It happens.
capitalize on your on if you show like a softness, people can pounce. It's really a dog eat dog
Yep.
world out there. So
I
I learned that through that time, even though I thought I was on top. These other experienced people out there that are really shrewd really pulled some strings that I was still aloof with.
I can't agree with you more. You know, sometimes the interesting thing is it happens with the people whom you least expect to turn on you.
Yeah, it
And
happens.
that's the part that is actually, you know, when you're young, you tend to wonder why some people are so guarded. You're like, why is he so stuck up? Why is he asking so many questions that are a bit negative? Like, why can't he just be happy that we thought of something, or there's a business deal that's going on and that we're about to make it? Because chances are he's gone through the same thing, and the rug was pulled from underneath him. So life and experiences will help
Yeah,
you navigate your world in the way that you feel is safest. And yeah, there are some things that will happen to you that, as terrible as it may be, are a blessing in disguise, because it makes you
yeah, I would
more
agree.
prepared and more, your foresight is better. You know, you can't go over in anything, because if you also look at the world with too much skepticism, you also start, it also will affect you
Yeah,
and the way
I
you
can
live.
be that way at times. I
Yeah,
tend to be overly cynical, especially with people's motives, and
cynical is the word.
I'm
Yes.
quite wary. But I agree that it's like a stepping stone or a learning experience, the whole journey. Because every day we wake up, of course, there's really something we have to deal with, whether it's paying the bills, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
making this meeting, or whether it's showing up. It's basically about showing up.
Right.
And our life is about showing up, doing responsibilities, and ensuring that we better ourselves, we level up, and learn from these failures, mistakes. So
That's a good thing that you said that, because showing up.
showing up in
I
anything.
know. I was gonna say, because showing up, as simple as it sounds to somebody probably who's young, or a child, showing up is nothing, but actually, in your adult life, showing up says so much about not just your respect for them, but who you are as a person.
Yeah.
You know, and that is, I my number one sick. I guess my ultimate flaw as a person is I'm always late.
Mm.
And I've learned, and I'm still learning. I'm learning so much about what it says about me. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
the lack of respect for the time of others is what a person who's always tardy does not tend to think of, because
Yeah, it says a lot if simple actions would
there you go. So showing up, as simple as it sounds,
have its meaning.
they always say that it's half the battle won.
Yeah.
I
Like
mean,
if you show up late, it could mean, oh, you don't think much of this person. That's why you're quite laid back. Or it could be a reflection of
of
yourself
yourself.
that you're sloppy, you can't
Right.
meet your promises.
Right.
It's a reflection.
Right.
Everything we do is a reflection of us.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. But going back to earlier about finding our path, I think it boils down to really knowing our role, knowing our
Mhm.
purpose in the world. Because sometimes we could get so caught up and we compare ourselves with other people in different fields. Especially now, because
social
it's
media,
it's so loud.
eh,
Yeah.
to compare yourself. Wow, it is.
So
If you're weak,
it could
weak,
really
it
affect
will
you.
really affect you. You know, I can understand how it affects others. Um, I I'm glad also, I guess, that I was spoiled growing up, but I was somehow raised
with values, with
values also, and this thing wherein I wouldn't really compare myself to others. Um, but that's also probably why I was never athletic, because I was afraid it would be a room for comparison. Oh, how is he playing golf or playing basketball? How is he
yeah,
doing?
yeah.
So it could have been also a negative and a positive, right? The positive is I don't have that thing in me where there's ingitan type of thing, but also it could have stopped me or hindered me from trying out more things, because in my safe zone I'm not doing anything that will cause me or anyone around me to compare me to anyone else, right? So goes both ways. But yeah, man, if you're, especially now, the whole, now that there's a label for each and everything, right? There's a label for a person who's sad, but it's not exactly like this, is called depressive whatever, and then there's bipolar, and then there's schizophrenia. There's just so many labels. There's a whole spectrum of everything
Yeah.
that,
I think there are many factors because
yeah,
there's personality, and some
exactly.
are really sensitive, so some aren't able to thrive as much. Some are really tough, built in, and some have lower, what I would call adversity quotient, because there's IQ, EQ,
Okay,
and
yeah.
there's AQ,
So
which
they're
is
low threshold for certain
for like being
adversity.
affected.
Yeah,
That's
affected.
why like there are people out there that, oh, they go through so much shit, but never occurs to them to kill themselves. And there's someone, oh, you just like insult them one time, or they go through a bad day, they could just jump.
I was thinking about this. So I was having this conversation with my mom, I think a month ago, because somebody committed suicide. I'm not sure if it was
There's a lot of news of that.
right. There's a
I
lot.
think
So
just few days ago, someone leaked. That was in Cebu, like a lawyer
okay, so
jumped to her death.
something like that. And I spoke to my mom about it, and I told her, she said, it's a good thing you never had much of that. And I said, you know what? I've dabbled in so many things, uh, different poisons, different parts of my youth, all sorts of experiences, that can give you a really strong chemical imbalance. Suicidal thoughts are different from, I think, suicidal ideation. So I, on a regular day, can think of something suicidal, but not necessarily applying to myself. It's a fleeting thought. Like, would it hurt to drown myself? Would it hurt to, if I died in a car crash? But it doesn't mean specifically that I have tendencies of doing it to myself. The scary part is there are so many children, or I guess the youth today, they get triggered very easily.
Yeah,
right?
it's a more sensitive generation.
That's why they were saying, right, before you watch this video, there's a trigger warning. If you're sensitive, don't watch it. So I guess the halo for me is, I come from the generation somehow, with my cousins and all, who would explore the dark web at the time and see just the nastiest things, and never occurred to me to do it to myself. But I of course I feel for those who struggle with it, because it's real. I will not, of course, name anybody, but there are few people that are very close to me who deal with it, and when I speak to them and when they talk to me, it sounds like, and again, I cannot pretend to know because I'm not them, but it sounds like an imbalance takes over, and it's a strong feeling that takes over their way of thinking on a normal day, and that the struggle is trying to stay alive, and that is something.
You mean depression? You mean
depression that leads
to
suicidal thoughts, and then some people, because I can think about suicide like me and know in my heart of hearts I'd never do it to myself, just because I love my life, right?
Mhm.
And when I say I love my life, I mean the ups, the downs, whatever. Not once have I ever thought now's the time to off myself. But I get why others do.
Yeah.
I get it because everyone has a different journey. Everyone is built
Yeah.
differently.
Built differently. I
You
think
know?
people perceive things differently.
Absolutely.
And as I said, different factors. You have genetics, so chemicals, how genes, how their
Exactly.
makeup,
Yeah.
their way of thinking. So those are things you can't really control. So it's not it's not easy to just judge, oh, do this, do that,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you
Or
can't.
mahina yan, or
Oh, because
yeah,
you
yeah. Of
can't
course,
fully
of course.
empathize because they're built differently.
Yeah.
Plus how they were raised. But I think that also plays a factor that, yeah, like, of course, people say, oh, snowflake generation, because people just condone certain behaviors, whereas before we were really taught to toughen up, especially the older generation, where, of course, values are set,
Yes,
foundations are
and
set,
religion was such
discipline,
a big deal. All the
discipline.
more then that your faith played a big part in your decision making, such as you can't kill yourself because that's against
Well,
our.
religion can be quite complicated
That's
for
what
me,
I'm.
but basically, there was a stronger moral backbone,
Absolutely.
objectivity, the foundations were there, whereas now it's more of a relativistic
Mhm.
approach, whereas
And it's
where
freedom.
it's, yeah, freedom, then things are condoned, like you don't want to offend,
Offend.
so you're just tiptoeing and someone might be triggered, so it's allowed, and because it's allowed, people aren't there's no backbone, there's no foundation, so it gets flimsy. So,
Yeah.
and I think we see that
I
now.
see again, like for me, I respect every person for who they are just because everyone has the right to live the way they want to.
Yeah,
That's my general
yeah,
sentiment across the board. Now, if my friend decides that he is gay or something, or a girl decides to be a lesbian or live that way, that's none of my business, really, right? So
mm-hmm.
whatever makes them happy, they're entitled to do that. I think the issues are just when society gets pressed too much
Yeah,
to adhere to the new way of I guess identifying certain things, such as I still, I don't mean to disrespect anybody. I still don't get the addressing. Is it a pronoun? The they.
yeah,
I will approach that straight from a grammar perspective that it's just wrong. But
yeah,
but I don't. I have no issues with how they live. It's just hard if they get offended if I address that person as, oh, she went to the restroom, or he went. It's hard for me to say, oh yeah, they went to the restroom, but it's just one person. Those things are. I'm still trying to understand. But
uh my take on that, I think it's important we don't deviate too far from objective truth, because I think there's a
Mhm.
backbone that we need to. I mean, we can't just be feelings based, diba? There's that saying,
Exactly,
like,
because
your facts don't care about feelings. I mean, facts
exactly,
don't care about
exactly.
feelings, because there are things that are factual. Truth does not change. Maybe our perception of truth does change, but truth stays the same
Absolutely.
throughout.
Because if I were
So,
married,
like, I can't, just because you feel like a woman, you can't just say you're a woman, and
uh,
you can't just declare.
I
Then people will just say, "Oh, okay, Enzo, you're a woman," because I don't want to hurt you. So I think we need to set certain
right.
barriers,
For
or we
me,
need
it's
to draw the line with
right.
certain
Like
issues.
for me, it's if I were married, I can't have another partner or another wife on that day just because I decided I identify as a polygamous person
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
That that draws issues not just on a social level, but on the level of law and governance. Just because the gray area to apprehend somebody for certain things gives them a free pass because they identify as such on this
Yeah,
day. You know what I mean? We still need to protect children. We still need to protect people in general. And again, I mean, no disrespect to anybody from any community, because I have friends from that community. Totally respect them for who they are.
Yeah.
And they're entitled to live however way they want to live, and that they should have equal rights. I agree. There are just certain things, I guess, about truth.
Yes, I think we have to. We
Right.
shouldn't lose
I
that.
can't say this is black just because today
Yeah.
I want to call this black.
Exactly.
Right? That I have a problem with, because now if I'm going to bring in a child into this world, how confused is my child going to be in a world that changes its labels and identity and its truths to make it specific to your truth?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of progress, all
Yes,
this
absolutely.
developments, all these positive changes. But of course, there are foundations that we need to stick by.
I agree. I'm with you there. You know, and that is my fear, and I hope that in time it doesn't offend anybody if the person refuses to address the girl or the boy as they,
Mm.
because it's just, you're one person. I can keep it at that. Never mind your gender. I'm talking to one person. I can't address you as they.
Mm.
It's you. You know, so it's just those things that kind of confuse me. But again, you know, each generation progresses, and it's supposed to somehow in their own way. And I want them to live their life happily.
Yeah.
Diba? I mean, everybody deserves happiness. That's my stand. Everybody deserves to be accepted. Everybody deserves happiness somehow, unless you're just a cruel person that, you know, is out there to hurt everybody. Then maybe you don't. But I'm in no position to also say that for anybody. Diba?
Yeah.
So yeah.
For me, yeah, goes back to objectivity, goes back to truth. And yeah, we need that. We need that core backbone, which I keep repeating. But
Yeah.
we can't deviate too far, otherwise it's mayhem, it's chaos when people just go full subjective with
Absolutely. And
with
that's
whatever.
we can't give a
We have our
holiday.
subjectivities,
Yes.
but there are objectivities
Of course.
also.
You can't give a holiday to certain things when it's convenient for you.
Mm.
Right? I mean, that's the main reason we have a constitution. That's the main reason we have laws and penalties and fines and all of these things that apprehend us, because there are certain things that guide us in life. And yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the thing with life. I think it's the harder things, the difficult things that are meaningful. Because of course we can just forget our responsibilities. We can pursue what's expedient, what's pleasurable. But of course, we're not gonna level up or progress.
Because you said that.
So it's the meaningful, difficult things, the responsibilities that we embark. That's what add value. That's what help us grow. And it's these vices, whatnot, these immature outlooks in life which pull us down.
Absolutely. And I get it, because comes to vices, that's the one thing that I think many people deal with. I most certainly was dealing with at one point in my life. And my question to you is,
and there's a constant push and pull.
Absolutely. It never
'Cause-
stops.
Because of course, like us, we know something's wrong, but at times
It's
you
okay.
You can't resist. But,
Yes.
but just
Yes.
indulge in that.
Yeah.
Whether it's women, whether it's falling off the wagon when you're trying to
Clean
build-
yourself up.
to
Yeah.
improve your body, whatever you're trying to hit a certain workout,
Mhm.
whatever it may be. Yeah, there are tendencies we want to fall off that wagon and just be carnal at times
Yeah.
or
And
pursue.
let your hair down, be human. I
And that's
guess.
part of the human condition, right? That struggle.
So I was going to ask you, you recently became a father.
Yes, and that was a big
I was going to
turning
ask you,
point in
does it really change you and your perspective in life?
because I look back, time just flew by very quickly. Because only a few years ago, I was that guy in the club. I was single. I was meeting different girls. I was carefree. And now suddenly I feel this weight, but it's more meaningful at the same time. Like my life has more meaning ever since I have a child. Because I'm thinking for him now. I'm not thinking all for me. So it's like every day I wake up, I think of his future.
Right.
I think of how I can impart. I can't be too selfish with the things I go after because now I'm impacting someone. I'm influencing this person. And that's the thing with children because when they're born, in a way you can say they're perfect and it's dependent on whatever influences that come that shape them.
Right.
If they're neglected or if they grow up in broken families, then it also affects their outlook as they grow
Absolutely.
up.
Absolutely. I
So
grew up that way. So I'm the only child with my mom and my dad. So I'm technically an only child, but we're actually a lot of siblings, and
yeah.
I'm very close to all of them. Um, because both my parents had children from previous marriages. My dad, even after his marriage with
Mhm.
my mom. So it's just like, and I'm so blessed to have all of them and blessed to have this kind of setup because it's given me a much broader perspective
Yeah.
on what family really means. Um, because you can live traditionally and have your mom and your dad, have dinner every day and go home together. But a lot of people, it, it does not guarantee that your relationship with your parents is necessarily going to be better than the relationship that I have
Mhm.
with my parents. So it is sometimes the way you turn out is not so much dictated upon how society says you are going to turn out, but rather by the turnout of the quality of time you're able to spend or that you're able to connect with your mom, with your dad, with your siblings.
Yeah.
And ultimately I think that's what shapes you so much, including also your friends, because your friends, unlike your family, you can't choose them, right? Your friends are people that you've
Yeah, you can
chosen.
choose. Family you
You
can't
can't,
choose.
right? So your friends, especially, I'm not talking about a friend you hang out with in a club every Saturday and don't speak until the next Saturday. I'm talking about a friend that has been with you through the worst of times, specifically your worst times. These are the people who you've chosen to be a part of your life, and they're the ones who have stood by you when they had every option not to. And those are the ones that you can count with your hand, with your fingers. They're the ones who are just as special as family, I would say. So my question is, whatever it is that you were going through before, whether you had vices or you had a different outlook or anything like that, does it, I mean, you already said that it changes, but do you feel like the change was easy because it was now what you wanted to do after having your son? Versus, shit, I have to stop going out because now I'm a dad. It was it more like, yeah, I'm ready to let go of that phase because this is a new chapter in my life, and was it easy to transition into that? Or are there
Actually,
days when you're like, it,
most of it was unexpected. It just happened fast. I mean, I went through a lot the past few years.
Mhm.
My dad had cancer, so that was like an eye opener. That life is really uncertain and we have to be prepared. And in terms of maturity, it really molded me. It woke me up like, oh, it's time to man up. I can't just be in this boy mode
Right.
anymore. So it really, these experiences molded me. And there are days you were asking, yeah, I do struggle. There are times
Mhm.
I do miss that. Like, I want to go back to, yeah, meeting girls. And it's tempting, I have to be honest, that there's that impulse to, fall off that wagon. Because life is very diverse and very so much avenues. So we can't just be so binary also, like, oh, eh, this is the right path. We know that deep down, but
Absolutely. I'm with you.
in the other aspect, deep down, we also know that, yeah, that's right, but we also have that wild side we want to explore, because we want to make the most of life and say, oh, we really live. So it's a tricky double-edged sword. Like YOLO, like you want to live your life without responsibility, but at the same time, you want to live your life with responsibility. Right? It's like you want to live, be carefree, make all the mistakes, but you also can't be too carefree
Absolutely.
that you lose your life.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. We have a false sense of security, or a false assumption that when we talk about life and we talk about the future, that we are all going to end up old and gray in our deathbed.
Yeah,
is
that
totally
that regret after,
right. But
when you're
actually,
old.
we don't even know that. We don't really know how much time we have here.
Exactly.
It's the
Anything
only
can
thing-
happen.
It's the only thing that even the richest person on earth cannot buy is time, or a definition, or something that a definite time of how long he or she is going to be here. So my question to you is this: if tomorrow were your last day,
Day.
can you say that you've lived?
Uh,
Would you be satisfied? At least. So when let's say you go up to wherever, heaven or hell, wherever you end up, there's a screen, and there's a screen, and then
Actually,
you can
no,
see.
no, yet. No.
You think no?
I think there's still a lot to embark. There's still a lot to learn, a lot to explore. And that's what makes life so interesting. And over the past few years, I've had some struggles, because it's like I've been on this path where, oh, fatherhood, embarking on more responsibilities, setting up a family, stepping up in career. But there's that thing also where if you're too much of a straight arrow, it's like you're not living also.
Absolutely.
So it's like you also wanna
Yeah.
just, there's also that fuck it phase. That
I struggle with that balance. I'll be honest.
that's the thing.
I really struggle with the balance.
It's the fuck it thing.
Yes.
Playing your responsibilities, but not also being so by the book.
Yes,
in
because
that
you have
regard.
to acknowledge that tomorrow is going to come. That's a problem when you're in your YOLO fuck it phase.
Yeah.
While you're there is
Yeah.
a euphoric feeling of invincibility, and just you are milking life for what it's worth. But the problem is the world doesn't stop spinning.
Yeah.
So eventually the birds are going to start chirping, the sun is going to come up, and it's like reality hits. And that is the one thing that wakes you up. That tomorrow is going to come. So doing things in moderation is ideal, but it's easier said than done. I always like to give that advice to people. Yeah, do anything in moderation.
In moderation.
It's hard to do, depending on your type of personality. My personality.
Yeah. Some have extremist type
I am.
or
That's me.
addictive
That's
type
me.
personality.
I'm flat out or nothing at all.
Yeah.
That's me.
But yeah, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like in the YOLO phase, the phase where you're single, you're always out, there's that emptiness.
It's true.
And
That's true. That's very true. Okay, let me just add to that.
Okay.
There is that emptiness, especially if you are trying
yeah,
to fill in a void. But there's also the YOLO where you are not trying to fill in anything. The emptiness comes in later on when you realize your days are repetitive, and it's like nothing has changed in your life.
I
You're
think
stuck.
anything routine
That's true.
is.
I'd say the same
You
thing.
get empty, then it's like something's missing. But that's the thing. Even in the YOLO single phase, there's that. Oh, need to step up. Need to find something meaningful. Then now, honestly, like I find something more meaningful. There's a family. There's kids. Yeah, blessings. Good things happening. But then it's like you're also stuck in that rut that you also wanna revert back to
Right.
the YOLO phase. So,
So the grass is always green on the other side. But here's my question to you. So in that phase, when you are thinking of those things, that things are going well for you, you have your family, you miss certain things,
yeah, it's
certain
like you're
aspects.
single, you wanna be married, and you're married, you wanna be single again. Because
Okay,
that,
so my question is, what is the best solution for a person who? Because dude, this is gonna resonate with so many people. What would you do to kind of reset that feeling, just to wash off the itch? My take is, if I had a family like you and I was feeling that way, I think traveling resets you. That's just me. I like a small.
I think it helps,
It
but I think
helps,
you
but
need
of course, yeah,
to
you still need to.
get away from the routine once in a while. But I think you need to be authentic in
And
whatever you want to pursue. And and that's something that comes internally. Of course, people are gonna give you all this good advice, some not so good advice. Yeah, I mean,
that's
you're
true
gonna
though.
hear that, then yeah, it's gonna make some sense. But of course, internally, you can discern on your own what what you really need to do. There's that inner voice.
Okay, we have a lot more in common than I thought.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's that
I see.
inner voice that
Absolutely.
calls out. So I think you have to have the strength, I think, and the guts to really go
Hmm.
for it. Because sometimes it's true, we don't have the guts
Hmm.
to really embark on it. Because of course, you don't want to shake things up
Yeah,
with how routine everything
yeah,
is. It's set. Because one day, if you say fuck it, oh, it's like, oh,
yeah. You mess up the
what's
whole
gotten into
process
this
and the
guy?
whole thing. Yeah,
So you can't escape from your responsibilities also.
right.
And so that's the tricky part. So I think it's really have to, I mean, you really have to plan it
And establish
thoroughly.
some sort of balance, I assume.
Balance. You have to
Diba?
plan it. I mean, there has to be some routine,
Yeah.
but there has to be some
Some
spontaneity.
yeah, I agree.
So I think that's life. You can't be too rigid. You can't be too flexible. You can't be, I mentioned this in another podcast, you can't be too idealistic, but you can't also be too pragmatic. Because, especially in our fast paced
Yeah,
dog eat dog world, we
Yeah.
need to be practical with our approach. Because of course,
yeah.
it's,
It's really
it's
a
a harsh
balance,
world,
no? Because
but you can't be too by the book. Oh,
Yeah.
this, that, or you're gonna get eaten up by everyone. Especially in politics, actually, I think in politics, there's also that side. Now you need to, be be a nod along in some
Yeah.
regard.
yeah,
Because if you're too much of a dogmatic
idealist,
guy,
yeah.
an idealist, you're like a KJ guy who's gonna be ostracized.
Correct. Because when
Yeah.
you are too idealistic, at least in politics, I think it's for everyone around the world, but most certainly for
Yeah, I think it
third
applies
world
everywhere,
nations.
but in
But
politics, it's more
yes,
visible, or it's
and
more
also
highlighted.
you have to be relatable. You
Yeah.
can have the smartest guy in the room and the most by the book, hands down, so intelligent. But if you're not intelligent enough to read the room to know that people
Yeah.
can't relate to
I
you,
think that's the EQ part.
there you go. I would me
Because there's IQ,
I'd
there's
rather
EQ.
go pa with more EQ.
Yes.
For me, it's just because EQ has so much more wisdom involved.
EQ, read the room, the discarte,
Yes, discarte.
the knowing what buttons to push. That's EQ.
Yeah.
That's very important.
I agree, because a person with the highest IQ who cannot uh, read the room or cannot make himself relatable to others is
I've seen a lot of high IQ with very low EQ, and it doesn't.
would they make good executives? Are they the type of people you would choose, or would you choose executive, not a business partner, an employee of yours? Would you choose high IQ, low EQ, or high EQ, low IQ for top ranking positions like your CEO? Who would you put?
CEO?
Would you prefer high EQ or
Because I think sometimes you just need good soldiers. So with good soldiers, you can
somebody who just listen to what you're saying?
even with low EQ, as if they get the job done, that's good. So
So that's
it
high
depends.
IQ.
It depends
Okay.
on the position.
Yeah.
But with a CEO, you need high EQ. as a
Yeah.
CEO because you deal with
I think your
people.
business development person needs
Yeah.
high EQ.
EQ, especially if it's an external role. If it's an internal role,
Definitely. External affairs is all EQ, I think. For me,
yeah, yeah,
it's not man all. Kasi
most.
most, di ba?
I think the IQ guys are the bad guy in internal people. You know,
Mm.
the ones checking the flow,
Yeah, the ones who audit you.
the audit.
Yeah.
That can be the low
Right.
EQ, high EQ
Right.
guys.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Regarding your take on, what about your take on religion or spirituality or God?
You know, it's funny. I I was never a religious. Okay, I was never a
Agnostic,
religious.
or you
I
were
was for a long time very agnostic. And that's coming from a boy who was an altar boy in the States. Because when I studied in the States, I had to go to a Catholic school because I wasn't a U.S. citizen, so I couldn't enter a public school, which was on the contrary. There, a public school, depending on your area, if your area is nice, is so well equipped. It's so much more beautiful than a Catholic school.
Mm.
Um, it's free. That's one, diba? But because I was with my dad there and I was not an American citizen, we had to pay for my education, and I ended up in a private school where I was an altar boy and I had to serve the ministry and all of those things.
This is Catholic.
Catholic.
Yeah.
So even when I was young, when I was studying in LaSalle Green Hills at the time, I would be the one who, after dismissal, would run to the chapel to pray before going home. I think a lot of it changed when my parents separated. Those are little things that you don't notice that affect your child. And I just, in that time where I was sort of spiritually dry, also came the time when philosophy was introduced. And philosophy,
When was it introduced?
high school, philosophy, if you are weak, will also challenge what you know to be your norm or what you've accepted as truth, because it challenges truth. That's what philosophy does. And I noticed that in my teenage years, I just like to challenge everything. I like I enjoyed challenging schools of thought. I enjoyed challenging norms. I enjoyed pressing the buttons of people because I felt they were just being close-minded or oblivious to progress outside, that they were stuck in their own ways. So I was agnostic for a very long time, and I will, to her credit, my then girlfriend she introduced me to this group called BCBP. Okay, and mind you, it is the last thing. Anyone who knows me will probably fall off the chair if they had found out sooner that I was part of a religious prayer group type of thing. So BCBP, if I'm not mistaken, is Brotherhood for Christian Business Professionals, something like that. Basically, what it did for me was it put me in subgroups similar to, how born again Christians have very intimate discussions about their faith, and in Catholic practices usually it's big. It's like a cathedral, and you say
it's a
the
different setting.
same repetitive things, and then there's nothing. You go home. This one in this group of BCBP, especially with the group that I was thrown into, it showed me a more human side to my religion of being a Catholic. It showed that I can be around people who are not going to pretend to be angels. These are people who constantly sin, constantly have struggle with trying to be better people, and that made me feel at home because there's nobody more flawed than me. And joining that group helped me somehow spiritually, but I cannot say that I am a religious person. I cannot say that I go to mass on Sundays. My relationship with God, at least the God that I have come to understand through 35 years of living, is a very personal experience. So I I find that I pray most sincerely when I am alone, and that when I'm at mass,
Yeah, of course. I think
it's distracting. I'm not putting it down. I will go to mass if I have to. Let's say
yeah,
with
to
my
each his own,
teacher's
basically.
own, but I find more sincerity when I pray on my own because it comes from me, and
Personal prayer.
I don't really pray to ask. I always pray to thank, because I always feel that in a list of people who have something to ask, I shouldn't be prioritized, but everybody sees it differently. Are you? Well, what's your religion, ba?
I wouldn't identify myself as religious,
So we're the
but I
same.
would say I'm a spiritual person. Like I contemplate on meaning, on whatever created us, on a higher power,
Oh, I do contemplate a lot on that.
supreme being.
It's gotten to an alien part, but
Personally, for me, I don't doubt there's a supreme being that created all this design, intelligent life, objectivity, beauty in nature, all the complexities we see around us. What gets tricky for me with religion is sometimes I'm wary of dogma. Like when you say, oh, this is absolutely true, in a sense that, oh, you have to live by this way very strictly. I'm a bit wary of that. So I've had wrestles with Christianity in general. I read up on some apologetics books, some atheist versus Christian arguments or theist. Yeah, because there are different types, right? There's deism. Deism is, oh, you believe there's a supernatural being, God, if you want to call it, but he's not there intervening in day-to-day matters. So that's where it gets tricky for me. Deism or theism, the intervening type of God. Because there are branded gods, which is what religion does.
right, so theology teaches.
There's already God of the Bible, which Christians believe in. But of course, there are so many denominations also, Catholics, Protestants, and they can't find agreement among themselves. So that's where it gets tricky. But generally, of course, they believe Jesus is God. So in that sense, Jesus is God. So you have to adhere to that book, to the Bible, and how you apply that, that's another tricky part. How you interpret it. So how you apply it in our day-to-day struggles. Because of course, day-to-day reality kicks in. Bills we pay, all the cunning approaches we deal with in terms of our dealings with people. Because of course, we need to be wary, as I mentioned. So I believe there's a God, a supreme being. But regarding branded gods, that's where I'm still. There's a big push. How do you feel? Because I know there's substance in Christianity.
Okay.
Humility, all the things they teach, turning the other cheek. So there are things we can apply. But to adhere to it very dogmatically, I'm a bit wary. Otherwise, you'd be some cult.
I was gonna say yes,
like a cult figure, and but then they would argue that, oh, Jesus was this radical, extreme guy, He called out Pharisees. So if we live as a Christian, are we gonna live like some cult figure that's gonna go around admonishing people? So I think that's the part it gets tricky for me personally. But for me, I think we're here in this world for a purpose. I would like to think there's something to look forward to, although I can't grasp what happens after we lose consciousness, after the afterlife, what happens after we die. I can't grasp. All I know now, the way I approach things is live our lives, be authentic to our responsibilities, and try to do the right thing. Because of course, there's that universal sense of right and wrong, right? I mean, that's innate in everyone across different cultures. So that's part of humanity. And I'd like to think that it's God who put that
That's the part that I was going to say.
Yeah,
So
that's ingrained
that's
in
where
us.
we agree.
So this creator somehow ingrained that in us for us to figure that out. Na, oh, we know it's objectively wrong to murder, to rape. So that's innately there. So I guess there.
How do you feel? Because I also recently fell into that rabbit hole of just
I
wanting
think we
to,
constantly discern like
right,
on
wanting to
what's the
understand,
right thing to do in any
yes, and
scenario.
what are the new age studies or findings or new schools of thought on certain things because the world keeps evolving. Um, so there are different theories, and theories are few and far, but there are so many. That religion and all of these things are interpreted in the possibility of beings that were here on earth prior to us and that watch us from afar as a simulation. Have you heard of something like that? Like those UFOs and aliens,
Yeah.
that those drawings of discs have been there ever since. And that there are people from like inner earth. And there's so many theories. And the one thing that I think can be picked up on is just there is a universal good and a universal, there are universal laws that sort of speak to all people from different religions, right? Like, because if you look at it from a philosophical standpoint, thou shalt not kill is a commandment of
Yeah, 10 Commandments.
right? But does it mean I am allowed to kill when I'm a soldier? Because it didn't say there, thou shalt not kill unless you are a cop, a soldier, in self-defense or anything. It just says flat out, right? So bending these things, if you are a dogmatic person, makes not bending those commandments makes you a little bit of a radical, and you're right. And that's what sort of makes,
that's
right? Because so if somebody's about to kill my wife and I see this person, my wife didn't do anything to deserve it. If I kill you, I am a sinner, right? But the law says, oh, it's self-defense. So who allowed us, right? Who allowed us the free pass to bend certain things from the commandments? If you are hardcore and you're gonna stick to that, that's when it becomes
that's where
radical.
I wrestle with it. It gets radical.
Yeah, diba? Because soldiers are fighting for different beliefs, technically, right? Especially if you make it a religious war. Two camps are fighting for what they believe in. So technically, we don't know who's right or wrong. They're killing each other. Most certainly, one has to be right if you're going to look at it in a very dogmatic way. But sometimes it's just perspective.
Yeah.
Diba? It's accepting the lack of acceptance in allowing people to live the way they want to, and not get in their way. I think is what
that's what
brings chaos to the world.
Still can't fully grasp, because there's a Bible, which of course some Christians claim that's absolute truth, but the world is so complex. We have all these different scenarios that I'm not sure if the Bible can fully address. Sure, no doubt of the wisdom that's taught. Jesus taught substantive things, but it's how you apply in all these recent scenarios we see. Some of it's hard to find that correlation entirely on how you apply it. So I guess that's where my wrestling arises.
I mean, as a kid, I struggled with religion just when I'd ask, let's say, my mom or my dad, if there are many religions, but there's only supposed to be one God, so many people are going to go to hell because one of them's right, and those are the ones who are going to go to heaven, and everyone else is wrong. And then, of course, you grow up. And as you grow up, you're like, okay, different interpretations, maybe, different ways of...
And that's the thing.
That's the part that kind of gets me.
And even the heaven and hell thing, it comes off very tyrannical,
Mm-hmm.
very conditional, binary, like,
Yeah.
you fail to accept him or repent, therefore you go suffer eternal torment. So it's kind of,
Or
it comes
before
off
before you
really,
die, you must get your last rites.
yeah.
So
So things
you're
like
welcome.
that.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't binary, of course, then of course God is love and understand, and He's an understanding God. So He can see through you. So the good, bad, ideally, right? But then if you fail to repent, then this is damnation.
Right.
So it's all of that. But of course, some would argue, that's like a parent, like only trying to instill discipline, so he has to be harsh also. So I don't know. It's so it's very hard to grasp,
Yeah.
given the complexities of humanity, how we think. It's very diverse. So that's why I'm very much against dogma in a way that you have to abide by this and only this, because life is very diverse.
True.
Human beings are very. I mean, there are different personality types out there, different cultures, different
Absolutely.
upbringing. So how
Yeah.
can you just say this is the answer? So yeah.
That's true.
And ultimately, I don't know. I mean, I'm at a loss for words as to what really happened.
I think
I guess for me, it's we hope for the best. We
Correct.
do our part. We apply good principles. We sense, we discern what's right, what's wrong. We try to do the right thing. We try to abide by truth. We try to, because we have that innate sense. Like we know, we ought to do this. Like let's say we lied to someone, we feel bad about it. So there's something
it's
we
a
deal
conscience
with.
part. It's those
Yeah.
intangible feelings
stuff.
that you get that regardless of what your religion or race or cultural practices are, you know when you've done wrong and you feel it in your gut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
And I think God does intervene in a way. I would think, based on how events play out. I would like to think, but it's as to how much actual intervening He does.
Mm-hmm.
Like regarding prayers, I don't know if He's actually listening, like exactly, or I don't know.
Yeah. Or like when somebody says that,
I'm a bit speechless with
me also.
certain things.
There are certain things though that could just be a matter of coincidence. You pray for something and you look at God
and maybe
like,
it's just a
please
natural
give me this
progression.
because I need this, and all of a sudden it happens and you're like,
And that's the thing, because God is supposedly mysterious. He's beyond what we can grasp, and yet here we're trying to define Him.
That's what I'm saying. So I think that the fact that we can't
then
is what makes Him a supreme.
Yeah, and we should stick to the things that we can
understand.
grasp.
Yeah, there you go. Or the same.
And if we discern certain things, perhaps He orchestrated this event in our life, then so be it.
Right.
I mean, if that was His doing, okay. If that's doing God's will, telling the truth in this instance because you feel guilty, okay, then so be it.
Yeah.
I guess there.
Yeah.
It's discerning in that regard.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Perhaps move on to lighter topics.
Sure.
We went deep into the
that's unexpected, but hey, that's
stuff.
what makes it interesting, right?
Yeah, I'd like to think. To summarize, we're here to live our lives, hope for the best, do the right thing, discern what His will is in our lives. Then,
absolutely,
when we go to the grave, then that's it.
That I agree with you.
Okay, perhaps we can delve a bit into your family background, your childhood, education, childhood.
Yeah, so my
your early career. Of course, we met in the BMW days. I was in the dealer side. You were in the distributor side, product side. Yeah.
So my family is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a bit of a modern family. So, parents were previously married with children, and then they had me. Separated. My dad has children. with this. But
Oh,
I'm
so
not.
you have half siblings.
All of my siblings are half. So my joke is always, I'm an only child, but I have siblings when it's convenient for me. But we're all very very close. We're all very very close. I have a stepsister also from my mom's husband now, who pretty much raised me also since I was about 7 years old. So been very lucky with the step parents that I've been blessed with, I guess. Very different people, but just I wouldn't trade them for anyone else, and I wouldn't trade the way my family setup is or has been, because everything that we've gone through as a family has only made us closer to each other, and that's the one thing that I feel most. That's what I'm blessed with the most. The family that I have, the cousins that I have, they're like my barkada talaga. I mean, of course, I have my friends and but they're really, I'm closest to my cousins, my nephews, my nieces. So the family background is my dad's side. We used to have a shoe factory called Ang Tibay Footwear. It's from the early 1900s. So if you ever go to Malacanang and go on a museum tour, the first thing they'll show you is the presidential suit of Emilio Aguinaldo, and the shoes he's wearing is Antibay, our Antibay shoes, which was produced by my great grandfather at the time. So we were in the shoe industry for quite a long time. My mom's side, naman, is more political, but in Bicol. So my mom is a Pimentel, and my great grandfather used to be the governor of Camarines before it became Norte and Sur. So it was still called Ambos Camarines. And then, of course, my grandfather also became governor, mayor, assemblyman, minister of state foreign affairs. So all of that, that exposure kind of, I guess, made me comfortable in where I am today. Which the car part was my passion. It's really, and I got that from my grandfather and my dad's side. They're the ones who really love cars and stuff like that. So growing up, that was my exposure. So leading up to where I ended up after my prod house, after BMW, being able to, I guess, be where I am now and just write for where as I am needed, I guess, is a very special opportunity, and it's a once in a lifetime experience for me. I am not officially employed by the government, so I don't have a title. I'm a private citizen, but I am called upon to. I have my duties to write as I am assigned to, or when I am assigned to produce certain things. So being in this phase where I'm able to capitalize on the years of writing, writing a coffee table book, which we released 2 years ago, also helped push me into, I guess, consideration. Somebody who can write beyond just cars. I think that was the ultimate challenge for me. Writing about cars is something that I can do with my eyes closed. It's just, I review the car or test drive it, and I more or less know what I want to say. But when you are pushed to write, let's say, for a coffee table book, all of a sudden there is word economy. So you have to be frugal with your words because it's more picture heavy. So you have to, again, relearn how to write and relearn how to say things. And with the job I have today, it is about being able to deliver a message with the same impact while using the least amount of words. Because people don't have the time to read, some like literature, basically. So yeah, it's been a challenge. I enjoy it. The pressure is intense. It's immense also. of course, working in the palace is special. It lies heavily on what we do affects so many, and that's the humbling part about it. It's, as a person who had maybe in the previous years said so much about politicians, the president, the administration, the cabinet secretaries, we don't really know or see how hard it is to actually run a country, to actually try to serve as many people as you can, to be able to bring to justice those who should, rightfully be behind bars, to thinking of how to open up trade so that the country opens and the economy is given a boost, and in doing so you also still have to protect the people that live here, that you're not taking away from them. There's so much push and pull, and it almost feels sometimes like they're pulling from one string, that serving this person or serving this cause is directly or indirectly affecting something else. Like, it can never just be two things. That's how I feel. So every time you serve someone something, a cause or something, you are disappointing another faction. You know what I mean? So it is just
tough decisions to make.
Always. And I would never ever want, even just as a joke or the dream, when you're young, it's like, oh, I want to be president, I want to be this, I want to be that. No way. The schedule is
too hectic.
Unreal. It is unreal, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to see it. It's like, for me, it's very hard to make. When I make mistakes, I am put through the grinder, because they're perfectionists, and for some reason they have the capacity to do a crazy amount of work but still check on what we're doing. Is what Enzo's doing right? Is it being done correctly? When I make mistakes, I can't make excuses and say, oh, because this happened, or this is what I'm facing now, because in relation to what they have to deal with, the people in charge, serve the country for the remaining 4 years, nobody works harder. My impression of, let's say, a first lady was always somebody who was just always glamorous and walking and is talking about art and painting and all of these things. My boss runs around the office, and I mean, I hear her heels, and she's running in front of me holding papers because she needs to help another faction, another group that's coming, and then she jumps out again and asks, is this prepared, because we need to be ready for these people. And it's really like, the capacity is humbling, because everyone's limit is what they know it to be, until you meet somebody whose limit is just so far stretched, and yeah, it's been, the pressure's immense, but it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding when you get it right. It's very rewarding to see happy people, especially when the palace is open and people are around, children, parents, mothers. Very, very rewarding. So yeah, but that's the one thing I don't joke about. Like, if you want to get turned off with the idea of being the president, work for the admin. When you see the schedule, when you see how tight it is, it's intense. There's no time to do anything else. So yeah.
What made you decide to enter into that political field?
So my course was,
you came from auto mostly, right?
Right.
Writing cars, being a product specialist.
So that was a deviation. So this is the truth. In 2009, I was in college.
What was
Um,
your course, by the
so
way?
I was first in legal management, and I failed accounting and algebra thrice in a year, which meant I was 1 unit away from getting kicked out. You know, it's hard to copy in accounting. You can't copy it. The boxes are so small. So I had to go with political science, and at the time, I call it the first cousin of my stepdad is Gilbert Teodoro. He's now the defense chief. He was a
Gibo.
yes, he was a defense chief also back then. Um, I saw it as a perfect opportunity to to ride on the coattails and run as a young idealistic fresh grad supposedly. But he didn't make it. And when he didn't make it, of course, reality hit me hard, and all of my plans came crashing down because I had no intention of going to law school. So the car industry was the absolute best thing for me as a young boy. It's the only thing that piqued my interest because it's something that I knew. I would have to learn a lot along the way, but at least I'm learning something I'm interested in. The whole political side of things came in because of some ties to the current admin. So my family has always somewhat been intertwined with theirs. Uh, Separately, also from the first lady and the president, different routes and relationships, I guess I would say. Um, I was able to build a good relationship with them, especially I guess as a volunteer. So I've won and lost with them since 2010. So 2010 won for the Senate, 2016 we lost for the VP race, and I never left their side because they're pretty much family to me. They've been so good to me. They've been so good to my family, and I've always been very close to them.
Mm.
So yeah, I guess this was the opening, but even then, I'm still not a full blown government uh, official anyway. So I work for them almost. It almost feels like I'm working corporate, just in a barong. But that's how I feel. It's not at all what most people would think. It's real work, and it's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. But yeah.
Mm. Do you still do a lot of writing in your present job?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So that's what keeps my mind working, and that's where I've learned also so much more about the different types of ways to write. So yeah, I do, and it's been an interesting journey. I Someone asked me also recently how I first met the president. I don't think I really have. I didn't tell how I met him.
No, please.
Okay, so the president. Okay, so one time we were at it was like a barbecue with relatives.
This was many years ago.
Many years ago. We're looking about. I was in high. Was it high school?
High school.
Yeah, high school. About third year high school. Summer. It was summer, and we were having a barbecue, and I remember it was so hot. I entered the living room, blasted the aircon in my face, and I just planned to stay there. And then the door swung open, and when the door swung open, uh, I saw a guy, and this guy was literally wearing what looked to me like hiking gear, a white shirt, and I even think the shirt was like a colorful Cebu shirt. Ironically, it was one. Those colorful shirts from back in the day in Cebu.
Island souvenirs.
Parang mga ganun.
Yeah.
Yes, parang
Still
ganun.
there.
Okay, parang ganun.
There's
And then
still a lot of that.
he was wearing that, and it was wrapped in parang a farmer's polo. Anyway, so when I stood up, and I had no clue who he was. I just said, hi. I was gonna usher him to the garden where people were having a barbecue because I was inside, and he just said, "Hey, I know you." And I looked at him and I said, "Huh?" Then he removed his sunglasses, and his sunglasses then had, those like red, yellow shade na pang cyclist, I guess.
Mm-mm.
Removed it, and he said, "You're the guy. As a matter of fact, I owe you." And I said, "Oh." Without saying anything, I remember, oh yeah, he was the guy I saw just the week prior in the same place who was about to leave when I arrived. And he got in his car. I went inside, but then I left my phone. So I left my phone. On my way out, he was still there. He rolled down his window and said, "Hey, by any chance you have $100 on you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, let me get it." So I went to the car, got my phone, pulled out $100 and gave it to him. And he goes, "Yeah, sorry, because I left my," then there was e-pass. Okay, you could transfer your RFID before from one card to another. It's called an e-pass. And he just said, I'll pay you back. I'll pay you back again." He goes, "Sorry, sorry." I said, "No, no, no, not a problem." And I gave him the $100 and off he went. So in this thing, when I had that flashback, and I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And I was like, "No, no, no, it's okay. You don't need to return the money." And he goes, "No, no, no, please, please." So he gives me the $100. I shake his hand, and he goes, "I never got your name." And I said, "Oh, sorry, sorry, I'm Enzo." And he just says, "Pleasure, bon." And that was it. I was like, "Okay, cool." Then he went to the barbecue thing, and it didn't even hit me. I was like, "Okay, so I'm at bon." He turned out to be the 17th. He was to be the 17th president of the Republic of the Philippines. So that was how I met him. And yes, there are some family ties after that I was able to figure out. But yeah,
15 years, around 15 years
yeah,
before
yeah.
the
And
presidency.
the most awesome thing, and I can't stress this enough. His wife, the first lady, during campaign season in 2010 for the Senate, we were all at a gathering somewhere in Manila Bay, in a big Chinese restaurant. I was sitting outside. A taxi pulls up. And it's a taxi that didn't even have aircon. Door opens, and it's her. She was wearing a red dress, and of course, I ran. Everybody ran, and I was like, at the time, she wasn't yet the first lady. So we're like, "Well, what happened?" and stuff like that. And she goes, "Oh, my driver, I couldn't find him, so I didn't have a phone with me. I just got inside a taxi, and rode off." But that's how they are. It's not how they're perceived to be, because the media has perceived them to be this
Glamorous.
super.
But they're very low key, down to earth.
Yeah, man. Again, I'm not defending whatever people may know from their past or what. I can only speak from
For your own
my own
experience.
experience. If they were that way, I think I would be swimming in cash. But no. As a matter of fact, we were reprimanded even for, let's say, giving prize money for people, or dole outs, holding checks. And she was very quick to say, "You shouldn't do that. It's not right. People are struggling. The last thing you want to do is make a big deal out of 5,000 pesos." And those things resonated with me. Those things are things that people don't know, because we're not going to talk about it, right? It's happening in our office. But these are things that I wish people would know, that they are really kind, really generous. I have nothing to say. I get my ass kicked in the office from a professional standpoint, because she's a perfectionist, she's very intelligent, she's a lawyer, and she gets things done. So I can never complain or make excuses for myself, because nobody works harder than her, and then the president. So I can't. I'm kind of stuck in this place where I constantly need to improve and improve and improve, and just keep pace with them. So yeah. And the one thing I want to say is this whole scheme of, let's say, anti-Lenny and all of these things, just because you are, let's make it simple. Just because you are pro-red doesn't mean you have to be anti-blue. or anti-pink or anti-yellow for that matter.
Yeah, it's
You
not
know what I mean?
binary. Yeah.
Yes, it's just a broader perspective,
Yeah.
and you know what? That's the one thing I learned with them. You just because mud is being hurled your way, it doesn't mean you need to throw it back. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. On a more personal note, how's your health? How's relationships? And are you
Well, health will always be
seeing different women or
no. So health will
Kumusta?
always be a thing
Or
for me because I'm not athletic. I don't really exercise so much. But a few years ago, I couldn't walk. I had the slip disc. Um, I, I did.
slip this from what?
Uh, I think I really had a weak back, and I didn't know how to bend my knees when I'd carry things. So it happened in San Francisco, carrying luggage, carrying a boy, those things. So when I would carry certain things, I wouldn't bend my knees, and my lower back suffered. So at one point, it just got worse, and I couldn't walk. And there, finally, my family stepped in and said, can't continue this way.
Mhm.
I met a doctor. I owe him my life. His name is JP Prado. He's an osteopath. He really fixed me. Became a really great friend. And every time I walk, I remember not to take it for granted because I know what it's like to crawl from your bathroom to your bed. But yeah, so that's more or less where I'm at. That's one of the things I'm grateful for every day. Relationship wise, well, I just came off one, but we're good. We don't really speak, but uh, not everything that you want in life is for you, right? Some things, or you realize later on, it's not for you. But the many women part, if my workload gets easier, maybe, but with the pressure of everything I think of on a daily basis, it's hard also, I think.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure like with you, you can't really just on a snap of your fingers go back when there's so much that you are doing.
Yeah.
Diba? So
You think you'd settle down anytime in the next few years?
it's possible. I was open to not having children because the truth is kids are so cute and I love children. It's just that what you see that is adorable is usually maybe 10-15% of the time, and that the other 85 or so is real work and commitment, and making sure you're on top of things so that you can take care of them and that you're not being selfish to them because they didn't ask to be born, right? So those things I kind of struggle with. The only time I ever wanted to, I think, was with my with Kate, my ex-girlfriend, who she's the only one I ever really wanted to have children with. So but that was not to be, and that is okay. So maybe in the future, I don't know. I always maintained that I just wanted her children, but not necessarily children per se. I mean, I always think of it as like food. I can enjoy food in as much as I enjoy children, but it doesn't mean I have to be the chef.
Mhm.
So I don't know, but you tell me if it's worth it. Maybe. Diba?
Okay.
Maybe.
Would depend, but that's something you need to really discern on.
Yeah, I think though there's a part of it that
Something
might
you really have to
save.
weigh and really introspect also.
But do you feel in any way that it saved your life from any potential danger that could be? Because that's what I always think.
Actually, I
I think
rationalize it that way.
diba? I always think,
I
I
think
think
it in
it's my
terms of
safety net,
stability, it
diba?
provided some stability and added some meaning and some leveling in a way na you don't go overboard.
That's wonderful though.
Sometimes I think that way, like, what if I was still single now and I have all this access? I think I would abuse certain things.
Yeah.
or I could fall off
Yeah.
a very dark road. So I think
Yes.
this is perhaps the way God's intervening.
Maybe.
Perhaps
Right? Maybe.
that's how I would rationalize it. That He orchestrated certain things to happen for you not to go overboard here. So
Yeah.
so anyway, perhaps something you wanna impart to whoever might be watching this, the youth or
Well, I would be the last
Yeah.
person that they should take any advice from. But I think the one thing I want to say,
yeah,
if I could say
advice to the
anything.
youth or some experiences you wanna impart, given your 34 years
I would
on
say,
Earth.
I would,
Learnings.
yeah, I think there's so much that I have learned from. But just like you and just like everyone else, we've all learned a lot from experiences in the past. But I would say not to take life too seriously. But that is not to say to throw it away or be in a YOLO fucked
Yeah.
up mode,
Balance.
24/7. But it's not that you're getting out alive anyway, right? So might as well enjoy life.
Yeah, yeah.
And in part of enjoying life is also finding the balance, because you go overboard with it, it becomes miserable.
Yeah.
Sometimes too much pleasure becomes numbing, and it without being able to chase or aspire or look forward to something. So instant gratification 24/7, you
Yeah.
tend to lose the plot. So I would just say to enjoy their youth, or to enjoy whatever they have now, and that nothing really lasts forever. Make, as you've been repeating, it's something that you should discern. When you make tough decisions or mind-blowing decisions that can alter your life, put a little more thought into it. Because I think one of the things that I suffer from is I have an impulsive nature. And
Yeah.
I'm very prideful also. Even if it turns out to be the wrong decision, I will acknowledge it, but I will roll with it.
Yeah.
When you could have
there
just been
could be
smarter.
slippery slopes there.
Right? When you could have been a bit smarter.
Sometimes our egos blind us.
Diba? Also, it's hard for me to say, I need help, or I made a mistake here. For me, it's like, oh, I made a mistake. I'll face the music. Because the pride comes first. And I think if you could just slow down a little bit, be more discerning, be more introspective about certain things, you might have, it will help. It will help along the way, and yeah, but overall, I always say this: don't take life too seriously, because you're not getting out alive anyway.
Yeah, we're all gonna die someday. Might as
Exactly.
well live it however we wanna live it. But
Exactly.
being careful also.
Yeah.
But not being too careful also.
True.
Right?
True. I agree.
Okay. What about future plans, ventures, goals?
Future
Things
plans
to look forward to.
Things to look forward to. Well, you brought it up.
in the next,
having a
in the not too
family.
distant future.
Having a family is something that maybe, but again,
That
I
would
only
depend.
I only really foresaw having a child with the
Yeah,
person I was with. So if not that, I don't know. Goals is yet to be seen. I also think I'm fortunate enough to be in a position to have something to look forward to even today. What comes after will come, and what is for me will be. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think we talked about
Yeah.
many things today.
Yeah.
So
Thank you so much, though.
thank you. It was a
Yeah.
pleasure talking
Yeah.
to you. We covered
Likewise.
on many subjects.
I know.
I enjoyed the conversation also.
Me too.
So
Beautiful.
very raw and candid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
look forward to seeing you more.
For
often.
sure.
Now that I'm
We'll hang soon, neighbors.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
that I'm here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
more power to you.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thanks, buddy.